All right, so you got take two of this golfer's swing. Um, I think our big takeaway we're going to see here is sometimes what can happen if we have some lack of mobility, particularly in our hips. We combine that with some restrictions we might have in our back, and all of a sudden, when we're trying to better our swing or we're trying to get to certain positions, we end up having to compensate. And a lot of times, if we're not using our lower body correctly in order to wind up in the backswing, what ends up happening is this hyper focus on, I need to clip the club to parallel, particularly with the driver. And so, what we're seeing here, and the takeaway, we're not going to have the full frame to see the club go back. But as we get to the top of the swing, we're able to see how, even on this face on camera, we're starting to get much taller overall through the backswing. And so this is not all that bad, but the price of it is how straight our two legs are. We're basically standing straight up. And so if we saw a down the line video of this, we would see how we're getting very straight through the hips and the legs. And all of this is going to affect how our hips are not all that rotated, but our upper body is kind of coming along this line here. And so the relation to how much our lower body has rotated in comparison to our upper body, we're well too over rotated with our upper body. Our natural point to do a backswing for this type of a swing is probably something right around here. And so we might feel as though that this is not a full swing, and truthfully, yes, it's about 3/4 swing. But at this point where the hips and the arms and the upper back all kind of work together where they should, at this point, all we're doing is the hips are stopping and we're just basically lifting that right elbow up and extending our back towards the target in an effort to get parallel. So what happens here when we have a lot of over rotation is we're having a tendency to cross the line or become very steep or over the top. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at some measurements of something called casting. And so what this means is as we're starting to come down, we understand that we need to get this club back on plane and we need to release it in a way. Now these numbers aren't going to be perfect, but we're going to try and release it in order to time up with the hit. And as we're going down, we're going to see how the numbers of our angles here are going to increase. And so again, these aren't 100%, but we're increasing our angle as we're going, and we're losing a lot of valuable strength in the wrist, as well as any lag or semblance of power as we get all the way to impact. And so the juicy thing with this one in particular is the classic chicken wing at the finish. And because we don't have a lot of rotation or flexibility, we also see at the end of the finish how tucked in this club is towards our body. We're not having any extension, albeit this front arm is extended. This left arm here, because we don't have a lot of mobility, is extremely cocked and bent. And we have this very fast left and then upward release, which is a classic position if we're casting and releasing the club from this position here versus maintaining this wrist angle all the way through into a spot where we're coming, where the hands would be in front of the ball and the arms would be slightly behind the ball like this. Instead, we get to a position just the opposite.